Mr. Doepfer here at Superbooth, and it's a special birthday for you, I think, this year, right?
Yeah, our company is celebrating the 25th anniversary here at the Superbooth in Berlin. And this is our friend. He designed the wasp filter for us. And we love each other.
Nice to be a bit of puppetry and modular at the same time. It's good combination. So, as ever, I'm sure you have some new items for us to take a look at, right?
Yes, we have a couple of news, and okay, let's go on. Totally new for the Superbooth, we have the Quad VCO. It's 4 VCOs behind one front panel. After all, it's 4 high-end VCOs manufactured with the new CEM3340, which is now manufactured again by Curtis USA. It can be used as a very fat 4-fold VCO, but it can be used also for polyphonic applications. And for this we continued the development of the polyphonic MIDI to CV interface, which you see here. A typical example would be to patch the 4 CV outputs of the interface to the 4 CV inputs of the Quad VCO to obtain a 4-voice
And has it got a summed output? Or
yeah.
Is it, okay.
You have individual outputs here. You have sync input. For each individual VCO, you have the 1 volt per octave input and a modulation input with a switch where you can decide if the modulation is frequency modulation or pulse width modulation. And you also have a sum input, which is required if you want to use it as a fat monophonic VCO. It's also possible to tune the 4 VCOs to intervals, for example, and play the chord with 1 CV. For this we have the common unit, the master unit. You have also octave switch, tuning, frequency modulation, and here we have the sum outputs, the sum of all rectangles, of all sawtooth and all triangles. And we also have a CV output which outputs this CV generated by the master unit. For example, you can use this to control a filter or a second Quad VCO that uses the same master unit. If you, for example, have a polyphonic patch with 2 VCOs for each voice, you may use a second of this one and have a common control for all VCOs.
That makes
if you patch the CV output to the other. Otherwise you would have to tune 2 of them.
That's a good
Okay, these are 2 modules. And the other modules which I will show you now are mainly modules recommended by A100 users who play a lot of live on stage. So these are mainly performance modules. For example, this is an octal voltage control switch. After all, nothing but 8 voltage control switches, but with a few special features. For example, you can, for each of the switches, design if he's working in the toggle mode. Let me see. Yeah, this is toggle mode. Or if it's working in the normal gate mode. Toggle mode means whenever you operate the button,
it's a 2-state.
It changes the state. And it's also possible to program it in a gate mode. Then it works like that. When you operate the button, it turns on and off.
Right, so this is momentary,
Yeah, it's programmable for each of the 8.
So would you use that as programmable routing, effectively?
Yeah. You can also program, that's a very important feature, master and slaves. For example, you can say we have master and slave. We say this is a master, this is a slave, this is a slave, this is a slave. This means this master controls also the next 3 switches. You will see it here. When I operate this, it affects all of them. So you can program groups of switches controlled by one unit, and you can decide for each switch if it's working in the toggle mode or in the gate mode, how we call it.
Right, so nifty, nifty.
There are a lot of applications. One application is in the polyphonic patch, you may switch, for example, between high pass and low pass of 4 filters simultaneously. Another application, who told us, the guy who recommended it, he needs a tool where he can switch live on stage between 2 different sequences. So it's necessary for him that, for example, 2 gate signals and 2 CV signals are switched between 2 CV.
So two separate clock sources, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
So that's you would have to patch 4 cables simultaneously. That's impossible. That's one application. Another performance, a very simple performance tool are these 2 modules. We lost the connection cables. It's nothing but a multi-core. You have 12 sockets which are connected to a 15-pin D-sub socket, and you have the same module here. The idea is, if you have 2 large cases, you can pre-patch all the connections which are required between the 2 cases. For example, a master clock start, stop, master CV, whatever you need on both cases. For this, you have to connect only 1 cable instead of 8 or 10 or 12. It saves a lot of time if you don't have much time to
So a lot of this is kind of like, well, apart from the quad VCO, this kind of workflow and So are you finding a lot of your clients are now, they are performing and that's what they need?
Yeah. And we also have a few other performing tools. What you see here is kind of a miniature keyboard. We have black and white keys arranged like a normal keyboard, but in vertical direction. And we have the corresponding receiver module. After all, the left one is nothing but a small MIDI keyboard.
Okay.
So internally it generates MIDI note messages which are received by the other module, and the other module has 2 functions. The main function is to generate a CV and gate signal like a MIDI to CV interface, and the idea is to use the CV, for example, to transpose analog sequences within the system without the need of an external keyboard plus MIDI to CV interface. So you can transpose within the system. The idea is not to play on it like a keyboard.
It's just a transpose switch, effectively.
And the second application of it is that it also generates toggle gates and normal gates. We programmed it that the white ones work as toggles and the black ones work as gates. So you can generate manually.
So you can have like triggers
and so on. And another idea is that you can separate the CV generation from the gates. You can, for example, say that the first button that is used for CV generation is that one. That would be a C. And the upper ones are not used for CV. So you can use the upper 5 buttons just for trigger generation without affecting the CV. And only the lower octave is just for CV. And in addition, you also have an octave switch, but we will change it because it's a wrong position here. It's always in the way. We will turn it up there.
Neat. So, I mean, 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Of kind of Eurorack, really. I mean, I've asked this question before. I'm not sure I've asked you about it, but I mean, obviously you developed a specific standard, or help make sure that the standard was adopted, and it's become very widely adopted. I mean, are there any changes that you'd like to see to maybe internal busing or any of that kind of stuff that would?
We will see. The problem is if you change the bus, you have to find a solution that it's compatible to all to the old stuff. So what we think at the moment, for example, is to introduce polyphonic patching. And the idea for the polyphonic patching is to use the standard network cables, which have 8 pins.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And the idea is to use 4 of the wires for 4 gates and 4 of the wires for 4 CVs. So if you have, for example, a polyphonic 4-voice MIDI interface and a quad VCO, there's only 1 cable that connects the 4 CVs of the interface to the VCO.
Okay.
And another cable goes to a quad ADSR with all the 4.
So it just cuts down the amount of wires you need, right?
Yeah.
And what about the notion of kind of storage of CV values to kind of recall specific, you know, not necessarily entire patches, but sort of states, I suppose.
Well, that's a problem after all, because you would be required to have motorized potentiometers or something
yeah, I
like
suppose
that,
so.
because it may be possible to store the positions, but if you recall the values, the knobs should move to the new positions, and that's extremely expensive. It's possible, but
what about if they're just, I guess, if they're digitally scanned and they only, so the values change, but then they will only pick up if you turn them again to change them from
yeah,
where
this would be possible. We had a few products, not modules, for example, the sequencer or something like that. But then you need an additional indicator which tells you if the knob position you see is really the current position or not. So you will have to add a lot of
okay,
additional stuff. It would be possible after all, but you will have to add maybe a second busboard,
Right.
which tells to the modules the preset
like
number or
states,
something
yeah,
like
okay,
that.
I
It's
see.
possible, but it's much more effort to design modules with this additional feature, because everything has to be voltage controlled to realize that, and you need memory and
DACs and all that kind of
DACs
stuff.
and so on. So it would increase the price, I don't know, a minimum by 3 or 4 compared to the normal version.
okay.
Not. So, and I don't think that that's the way it will go. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, because it would make sense also if you memory the patches. So you would need a small robot,
or a switching matrix of some kind. Yeah.
But for a system like this, you would need a switch matrix with 200. It's I think it's from my point of view, it will not come. Not in the analog world. In the digital, it's totally different. But I don't think because it's too expensive and too complicated. But
Okay,
maybe
the
I'm
other
wrong.
thing is obviously now, after 25 years of Eurorack, I mean, my eyes are already starting to kind of gravitate towards larger formats. Do you think there's going to be a Doepfer 5U range at any point, so that you you don't have to wear your glasses to use them?
Yeah, you will see.
Mr. Doepfer, thank you very much for
Yeah.
your time. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye bye.